K-pop is in crisis. And to save it, K-pop needs to drop the K. Or at least that's what the chairman of HYBE, one of K-pop's biggest companies, seems to think. Yup, that's him, sihyuk. I bet you're wondering how we ended up in this situation. When this headline first dropped, the reaction was crazy. Dropping the K from K-pop? What do you mean we're dropping the K from K-pop? Are people even going to like that? I'll tell you what the fans think. They hate it. They've called sihyuk the Elon Musk of K-pop, that it's a stupid-ass businessman take. So, yeah, fans do not like this at all. So now the question is, why? How did we even get here? Okay, imagine this. You're a data analyst at HYBE, and you've been tasked with crunching the numbers for this year's annual shareholder report. Your boss asks you for the numbers, and, well, what do you have to share? Well, boss, you know how in 2020 our album sales grew by 82.6%, and in 2021 they were 62.1%? Well, album sales still they grew this year, but by 4.8%. And actually they decreased by a whole 30% in Southeast Asia. Oh god, that doesn't sound good. Well, what about streaming? We still have streaming. Boss, well, our share in Spotify charts in Indonesia fell by 28% because, people are just listening to more local music acts like T-pop, V-pop, P-pop. There's just a lot more competition now. Well, geez, okay, fine. Southeast Asia is doing bad. What about our other markets like the US and Japan? Well, boss, K-pop's still growing in Japan, so that's good. But the music industry as a whole hasn't grown there in, the past 10 years. And also for US, which happens to be our third largest market for K-pop, our share of imports hasn't grown at all. It's stuck at 17%. And also there's 53% less K-pop on the Billboard Hot 100 in 2022 than in 2021. Jesus Christ. So it's not good out here for K-pop right now, despite however loud the Twitter stands are. So what's a K-pop executive to do? With all the numbers showing that K-pop's growth is stagnating, HYBE can't just stay a K-pop company anymore if they want to grow. They have to go global. And the ultimate goal? Challenge the giants, Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music, the American Big Three, to ultimately achieve scale that cannot be ignored. This is an absolutely massive task, one that Pong has literally described using biblical terms, where the American Big Three is Goliath with 60% of the global music market share, and HYBE is tiny little David with 0.9% share. So what's HYBE's plan to take on Goliath? They're going to acquire foreign music labels, such as Quality Control and Big Machine Records. They're going to establish foreign subsidiaries, such as HYBE America, HYBE Japan, and HYBE Latin America. And they're going to expand Weverse, which is a K-pop fan platform, to include foreign artists. And they're going to drop the K. Isn't that just pop? Not quite. Let's call it glocalization. So what is glocalization? Glocalization is like when you go to McDonald's in the US and you order a Big Mac, but then you travel to India and you go to McDonald's there and you get a Mikalu Tiki. When you apply this to K-pop, well, in Korea you have New Jeans. But in the US, we have Katseye. So Katseye is a brand new girl group developed in partnership with HYBE America and Geffen Records, which is the label of Olivia Rodrigo. And it's meant for an international and more specifically, a Western audience. So what HYBE is trying to do here is, let's take the K-pop business model that K-pop is so famous for, and then let's localize it for these countries. So instead of exporting the music, now we're moving to exporting the business model. So it's not going to be all Korean members, it's not going to be all Korean songs. The promotion, the music, all of that's going to be more Western. And if Katseye is successful, there are plans to franchise this system across the world to potentially 2 or 3 as of yet unnamed cities. For the time being, HYBE is focusing primarily on the US because growth in the US can offset the drop that we saw earlier in Southeast Asia. And because the US is still the largest music market in the world, there's still room for growth there that's becoming increasingly difficult to achieve in Southeast Asia. So the aim of these new glocalized groups is not to appeal to existing K-pop fans. It's actually to draw in new fans, those who might not listen to any K-pop or might even have a negative perception of K-pop. And yes, this is a huge risk, one that HYBE has acknowledged, but also not one that they're alone in taking. So if HYBE is dropping the K, then what is the rest of the industry doing? Well, to be honest, they're kind of doing the exact same thing, just under a different name. Lee Soo-man, who is the founder of SM Entertainment, described this as the 3-stage evolutionary theory. Step 1, export Korean singers and albums overseas. Done. Step 2, recruit foreign idols and integrate them into K-pop groups. Done. And then step 3, discover and foster local artists in cooperation with local companies. And that's where we are right now. Actually, we've already completed the 3 stages, but in East Asia. Step 1, Poa's legendary Japanese debut in 2002, where she was one of the first Korean artists to break into the Japanese market. Step 2, think of the numerous Chinese and Japanese idols in the industry already. And step 3, glocalized groups such as wayv from SM, niziu from JYP, and Team from HYBE. And these have been fairly well accepted by K-pop fans as the norm now. The difference is that we're only just now starting to enter the 2nd and 3rd stage, but for the Western market. So we've definitely already exported the albums. If you're American, check your local Target for the K-pop section. But we're only just now starting to include non-East Asian or Southeast Asian idols and making these localized groups. So HYBE obviously has Katseye, but JYP Entertainment has an American girl group called vcha. And SM Entertainment just announced a partnership to make a UK boy group. And YG Entertainment has a rumored Thai group scheduled for 2025. And that's not even including other smaller agencies that are attempting similar things. So K-pop's been expanding into the rest of East Asia without much issue for years now. But now that it's looking into the West, that's when things have started to get controversial. So even though almost all of the attention online is on sihyuk, because to be honest, he's the only one doing major press conference interviews about this is something that the industry as a whole has been working on for years now. The strategy isn't new, but the fan anger is. So why are fans so up in arms about this? I mean, yes, it is a crazy headline, dropping the K from K-pop. Of course, we're going to get knee-jerk reactions from people who only read the headline. But even with people who have taken the time to read up on HYBE's business moves, there's still a huge wave of discontent. And some reasons are more valid than others. So up until this point, I've mostly been recapping facts and numbers, but now I'm going to switch to a bit more of an opinion piece. I'm mainly going to be focusing on the reaction of international, specifically Western fans, since that's the background where I'm from. And spoiler alert, I have some hard truths for K-pop fans to confront. First, we need to understand what fans think of K-pop's prior attempts at music for the Western market. K-pop's been looking westward since its earliest days. Artists such as Poa were among the first to attempt to break the US market. And then we had further attempts with Wonder Girls, and then finally we had the breakthroughs of Psy and BTS. Today, it's pretty much a staple for new groups to try and crack that English-speaking market. They'll release an English version of the Korean songs, if not an outright, entirely brand new English song. You think international fans would just eat up these English songs? But there's definitely a subset who don't. Take, for example, Butter and Permission to Dance by BTS. These are bright, fun, radio-friendly, and both of them achieved massive chart success. But some fans just couldn't get into these songs because they thought they felt like such a distinct departure from BTS's prior Korean releases. They argued that the group lost their musical identity in the name of being approachable to a new audience. For example, let's take a listen to this excerpt from the New York Times podcast. But before we do, a quick disclaimer, this podcast episode is actually quite controversial. Let's just call it that. I'm not including this excerpt as an endorsement of this particular episode, just as an example of this type of thinking. Okay, roll clip.
This was not anything I wanted to listen to. It didn't sound like the group that I had enjoyed. Even with BTS being that chameleon group, they were able to handle a bunch of different styles and, do them well. But yeah, this one was it was a step too far for me anyway.
And although this isn't the case for all English releases, it's definitely a prevalent belief about English releases in general. Like, sure, at the end of the day, K-pop is just pop music. But if you listen to it enough, you'll start to notice some of the signature flares that make K-pop distinct from Western pop. So think of the famed YG party chorus, of genres. The main vocal high note that's shoved into like the bridge of the song. And every time the main vocal sings it, they do that main vocal pose. K-pop fans, you know exactly what I'm talking about right now. So a lot of K-pop sounds nothing like what the Western radio plays, and that's a huge part of the appeal for K-pop fans. Like, how many songs on American radio have the same goofy sound as a song like Zimzalabim? Yeah, not too many. But even with the more approachable song from that same artist, the producers of the song themselves admit that's sonically not going to do well on American radio.
It would be difficult to hear this song on the radio in the States. It's very musical, and it has a lot of changes, which in the Korean culture, like he's saying, they thrive off of that.
So this is literally the classic problem of a niche going mainstream. So for years, K-pop has been a niche. A growing one, yes, but a niche nonetheless. But when something tries to go mainstream, it often means sacrificing the things that made it special in the name of trying to target some nebulous new audience. Now, I'm not saying that this is a BTS only thing. It's definitely not. And I'm also not saying that all English songs are bad. I definitely don't think that, and neither do all fans. But for many international fans, mainstreaming goes hand in hand with westernization. And westernization is associated with underwhelming music that just has completely lost its identity. And so as a result, it's caused K-pop fans to be wary. But even more so, there's definitely a feeling of sadness when you think about dropping the K from K-pop. And that's because Korean culture and language is so important to K-pop and has been crucial to the spread of K-pop around the world as part of the Hallyu wave. And this is felt even more strongly for Korean fans, who have been feeling like they've been abandoned now that K-pop companies are focusing so much on the West. And you really can't deny the feeling of national pride for the artists, the company, and fans for being able to represent their country and culture on the world stage and being able to see people around the world embrace your heritage. I think of My Universe, which is a collaboration song between Coldplay and BTS, where BTS sings almost entirely in Korean. And that's a very marked statement of pride in their cultural origin, especially for a song meant for a global audience. I think of Blackpink performing at Coachella, using it as an opportunity to showcase traditional Korean architecture. And I think of the numerous other acts who have taken the opportunity to promote in Korean hanbok or highlight Korean architecture. It's allowed K-pop fans around the world to learn more about a culture that they otherwise might not have cared about, to appreciate new language, food, history. And for many people, that's part of the draw of K-pop. And there's also an additional layer of complication for Asian American fans, like me, because yes, hello, the disembodied, faceless voice that you're listening to belongs to an Asian person. But for many of us, the appeal of K-pop is that we're able to see Asian faces in entertainment represented without the Western media boxing us in. K-pop is more than just showcasing Korean culture. It's also about showing Asian people as fully fledged human beings for once, and not just a set of stereotypes the way Western media tends to do. And with glocalization, we are going to lose these visibly Korean aspects. But in actuality, this is a lot more complex. What is a source of pride for fans of Korean heritage ends up being exotic to some international fans. For many fans, part of the appeal of K-pop is that it's visibly Korean because there are so many Asian faces, because that's something new and exciting to you, especially if you grew up outside of Asia where there are still very few Asian faces in the media today. Now that K-pop is trying to globalize, it's no longer obviously Asian. The key word here is Asian, not Korean. K-pop's already created localized songs and groups for Japan for years now, but these Japanese releases are usually accepted without question. Why is it then when K-pop tries to go westward, do we get into so many debates about catering to the West or Western validation? When this rhetoric is taken to its absolute worst, it starts to get xenophobic. Like when an idol is live streaming, some fans will ask them, please speak English. But when the English is something that fans can't control, like when idols sing in English, then we start getting into debates about how the pronunciation is bad or how they want Western validation, yada yada yada. Like with this tweet on Twitter, which got over 40,000 likes, where this user blamed the decline of K-pop with the obsession with Western validation, with the lack of originality, the lack of Korean language, having too many white producers, and weird nonsense lyrics. Let's just say that the quote tweets weren't the nicest. A lot of K-pop fans absolutely fetishize Koreans and Asians in general. Replace the Asian faces, replace the Asian language, and then suddenly the exoticness of K-pop is gone. And unfortunately for many fans, K-pop is special partly because it is Asian, and the westernization of K-pop absolutely threatens this image. If K-pop loses its musical and cultural identity, then what makes it different from pop? It used to be quite clear what was K-pop and what was not. Girls' Generation is K-pop. Justin Bieber is not. But the lines have been blurring for years now. If the song is all English, is that K-pop? If none of the members are Korean, is that K-pop? So perhaps the best example of this is Seven by Jungkook. This song is entirely in English, was produced entirely by American and Canadian producers. It hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It definitely has a more Western sound. Really, the only obviously Korean aspect of it is the man singing. It's clear K-pop is so much more than just the music. It's a combination of the performance, the visuals, the singing, the dancing, the fan culture, the industry standards, the community. But in the eyes of the industry, K-pop has long since been just pop music already, according to Charlie Christie, who is VP of Geffen Records and one of the leads behind the creation of Katseye. For years now, the industry has defined K-pop not by the ethnicity of its singers or by the language sung, but instead by industry standards. But that's not how the world sees it. The fact of the matter is, the K in K-pop holds it back to some extent. But what does that K mean? No, I'm not saying that the K in K-pop stands for Korea. I'm asking you to think deeper. What does it symbolize? That K is going to mean different things to different people. To international fans, that K symbolizes everything Korea, from culture to aesthetic. Prepending that K in front of a word is a signal for a specific style. There's a very positive association attached to that K, the Hallyu wave, the literal manifestation of Korean soft power. There is no stigma attached to that K whatsoever. But take it from the perspective of a non-fan. At its worst, that K is a signal of low-quality, mass-manufactured, factory-made pop crap. It's fake, they're all plastic, and did you know that there's a dark side? That K is an active turnoff, and it's associated with being lesser than its Western counterpart. But even when there isn't malicious intent, the K of K-pop perpetually others the genre in the eyes of the West. Take, for example, the new music K-pop playlist on Spotify. This is literally a giant playlist of every single song that gets classified as K-pop. And what do these songs share in common? To be honest, not too much. So of course you're going to have your classic K-pop idol songs, but there's also things that get lumped in there that don't really belong, like hip-hop or indie or non-idol music, because yes, there is a difference between a regular pop singer and a K-pop idol in Korea. The only thing that these songs share is country of origin, even though the actual music differs significantly. And in this case, it's defined more by its exoticism than the distinct melodies. It's also reflected strongly in award season, when award shows like the 2023 Billboard Music Awards create separate categories just for K-pop acts. Best K-pop song, best K-pop group. But they're barely ever nominated in the main categories. For whatever reason, the Western music industry does not want K-pop in the same playing field as Western pop. But have I not just spent the last gajillion minutes talking about how K-pop and pop are melding together? Why are K-pop artists always boxed off into their own groups? That K perpetually others the genre, and it's always first and foremost seen as something different, something other, something not from here. Not as music, firstly. And that's a hugely depressing contrast to when you compare how some Koreans have viewed that K, as a symbol of immense pride. Former First Lady of Korea, Kim Jong-suk, said, "We feel proud of our Koreanness when we see words with that added K. K-beauty, K-drama. That K is usually added to promote exports or to boast about Korean culture. And there have literally been so many words with K prepended to them that someone made an actual K iceberg. Like K food? Yeah, okay, I like that. K subway? Sure, why not? K shit? We can stop there." I think RM of BTS said it best with this quote: "You can get sick of Spotify calling us all K-pop, but it works. It's a premium label. It's a guarantee of quality that our grandparents fought for." This issue isn't new at all. K-pop just simply finds itself at the same crossroads that JRPGs and anime are already at. It's a term that simultaneously indicates a style, but also perpetual foreign other, a term that gets more and more blurred with globalization. But even if this new glocalized K-pop isn't visibly Korean, it doesn't necessarily mean that Korea is being abandoned wholesale. Professor Lee Kyu-tak, who is associate professor at George Mason University, Korea, makes the case that K-pop will take a similar path to hip-hop. Sure, hip-hop might be created by people all over the world now, but you can't separate hip-hop from its roots in Black American culture and history. And we could argue for the same thing for K-pop. K-pop might one day be known as American K-pop with no Korean people or no Korean language or Korean involvement at all. But Korean culture and history, those will forever be intertwined with K-pop, and you just can't take that away. And in a way, it actually kind of ends up being this extremely ironic full circle moment for K-pop, given how, let's just say, strongly influenced K-pop is by hip-hop and Black culture. Ultimately, what a fan wants is not necessarily what a business wants. Part of the backlash is because fans are thinking from a fan's perspective, but Pang Sihyuk and the rest of HYBE's executive leaders are going to think about this from a business perspective. Fans are going to tend to want to see more of what they already know and love, like to see more music from their favorite group. But a business has to consider their 10-year plan. What changes might there be in the industry? How do we adapt to changing consumer trends and rising competition? Clearly, HYBE and the rest of the industry see enough potential in expanding westwards that they're willing to risk angering a portion of their existing fan base to attract new ones. And at the end of the day, they're not trying to wipe out everything Korean from K-pop. They're not trying to feel validated by the West. They're just businessmen making business moves. Now, do fans have to like these business moves? Absolutely not. Dear God, no, that's not what I'm saying here. And fans don't even have to know anything about the business side of things to feel like they should be able to have an opinion about this. And absolutely nobody needs to read the HYBE Q4 investor report. I did though, because I was researching for this video, and I also have a terminal case of K-pop brainworms. But it's also important to consider what reasons you might have for disliking this. What is the draw of K-pop to you? What aspects of it make it special? And are those attachments healthy? And this goes far deeper than whether or not you think dropping the K is a good idea. There's clearly an additional emotional layer to this that makes all of our feelings more complex. Is it depressing to confront that at the end of the day, K-pop is about making money? I mean, yeah, definitely. We as a society tend to believe that art should be an expression of self, that it should be free from business or profit interests. But I think it's idealistic to ignore that. K-pop has never been an industry that's tried to hide its commercial aspects. And when fans are confronted with the blunt reality that K-pop music is a product meant to be sold, that's pretty hard to digest. Personally, I'm not opposed to seeing K-pop globalizing because I don't feel that what I value about K-pop, which is Asian representation and musical diversity, I don't think that these things are an existential threat here. Glocalized groups like vcha and katseye have made it pretty clear that Asian members have a place in this new phase of K-pop. And as for musical diversity, I still think that there's so many groups in K-pop right now that there will always be something that I enjoy. And even if K-pop starts to sound more mainstream Western, I'll still enjoy it. And most importantly, I don't think that this new glocalized K-pop is replacing the K-pop that we already know. It's just an addendum. We're expanding the definition of K-pop. Yet this glocalization of K-pop is still a huge risk and could very well fail. And will this be successful is a different question than the one I've been answering in this video, which is, why do fans not like this? I've kind of just accepted that my opinion is an unpopular one, online at least. I just don't think that the glocalization of K-pop is nearly as drastic as what the headlines make it sound. But I would love to hear your thoughts about this topic in the comments section, especially if you disagree. But I do acknowledge that for other fans, the parts of K-pop that they love are at risk, and there are still valid reasons for that hurt. Remember, however, that just as how K-pop companies aren't obligated to follow what fans want, you, as a fan, are also not obligated to follow what the company wants. Whether or not dropping the K will work depends entirely on how much time, attention, and money you, the viewer, choose to give. Choose wisely. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. I had a ton of fun making this, and I owe thanks to so many people, including my Instagram followers. You can find me at Operation Kepler. I also owe special thanks to my friends Leslie, Lucy Happyfoot, and Hermione Granger. Listen, I asked them for how they would like to be credited at the end of this video, and they gave me these weirdo pseudonyms, so I guess that's what I have to use. Until next time.